evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the industry panel. And after listening to Dr. Kumaraswamy, Dr. Hans, and Navid, I had to change the structure of the session a bit. I know we have shared some questions, but I thought straight away I'll jump, given the best interest of time, Sanjiva, to you. Now, Dr. Kumaraswamy mentioned that when he saw the comparison of 1965 IMF program versus this IMF program, there were quite a few similarities. That means like for the last 85 years, we really haven't done anything, but it's also at the latter part, it indicated that this time seems a bit different because somehow we have managed some changes that we have done. What I want to ask you is, you have widely traveled, you have been in this industry. We are talking about work in Sri Lanka. What is your pitch for someone to come back to Sri Lanka and work and to attract them back? What is the proposition? Is it still convincing you as a business leader, industry leader, for them to make a pitch that this time it's different, come back? And do you see that is reflecting in your tech industry, or even to give a sort of a futuristic approach? No, it seems, what are the gravitas here, and how do you make a pitch to people to come back?
That's very easy. This is the only place that's not a crazy-ass place anymore in the world. Every other place is going crazy. Sri Lanka is one of the safest places in the world right now. One of the places where nobody's trying to blow anybody else up. We have the fundamentals of Sri Lanka are really, really good. Yes, we have all kinds of problems, but every country, every place has all kinds of problems. Every place has a half empty glass and a half full glass. Sri Lanka as a country has so much to offer to people. It's not only Sri Lankans, but part of the purpose of work in Sri Lanka is not only to attract Sri Lankans returning, but also to get highly qualified, highly experienced, highly knowledgeable people from all over the world to come and work from Sri Lanka. That's why it's called Work from Sri Lanka. And the exposure, the experience that Sri Lanka offers in terms of quality of life. If you're on X or Twitter X, you see Indian tourists commenting about Sri Lanka repeatedly now. And actually, there was a guy in WC, there was a Cisco, was one of our investors a long time ago, and about 10 plus years ago, there was a distribution engineer from Cisco who used to come and visit us. We were doing some work with them. And he would say that Pune in India, they had their big facility there. And every time he comes, he would say, Sri Lanka is like the Switzerland of India, right? And that is the general perception that you see from tourists. So yes, we have all kinds of problems. There's all kinds of things that we can do better, and we must do better. And as we just heard, we are setting up a framework to do better. It's been under development for many years, and we're kind of getting that foundation established. And for, as Dr. Indra said, the third president from 3 parties now backing up the same process, which is incredible. Never happened before. So in terms of a place to live in, a place to work from, place for kids to go to school, we don't have crazy school stuff, we don't have school shootings, we don't have any of these things. Knock on wood, Sri Lanka is a safe place. Yeah, we have some taxes, but honestly our taxes are not worse than Australia, UK, any other country you're living in, it's far less. Right? So I think this is a great place to be.
Thank you, Sanjiva. Thank you very much for setting that context. So now I want to brief you the structure of the panel. So I want to explore on the industry side from Sanjiva, mainly how we can attract more people, and from Thilan on the investment side, like how we can attract talent when it comes to the investment side. Of course, from Kavinda, because when anyone comes back, they want to also understand the financial system, the connecting with the banking system, because they earn probably a dollar revenue, a rupee revenue. They need to get their money back on the financial sector. Of course, from Sarrah to understand the regulatory side, because there's a visa process, there's companies needs to work on. So that's pretty much the structure. You can also help me on moderating the panel. There'll be a QR code displayed, so you can shoot the questions, and I'm happy to take your questions also, so then I can shoot those questions back to the panel. With that, Sarrah, so Sanjiva gave an excellent pitch. We are the kind of the Switzerland of India, and there's quite interest at the same time. While, as he mentioned, there's a lot of crazy things going on. And we got some optimism in the last panel that things seems to be a little different. And from Navid said, it takes a next probably the election cycle to really see the results translating. So like a good investor, they will invest early in that case to come to Sri Lanka, to move to Sri Lanka. But still, I'm sure there are some regulatory things that we need to fix, which is your forte. When someone who is considering to move back, or a general manager who is looking at attracting better talent, how does it work when it comes to visas? Are there anything that we have to fix to attract them? I would like to get sort of an industry point of view, what we need to fix and what are we doing right and what are we not doing right.
Thank you, Dhananath, and thank you for having me here today. So I wanted to explain what I do, which is global mobility. And somebody asked me in the crowd, what does that mean? So it's the ecosystem of moving talent. So it starts from immigration to destination services, what it takes to move talent. And in this scenario, we're looking at people coming back. So one of the difficult things, as Dr. Hans mentioned earlier, and everyone else, is transparency in the process. Lot of the things that needs to be done in order to bring back people means also integrating them into our country. We say, come, please come back to Sri Lanka. But when they do try, we do, on the other hand, make it really challenging for them. And it's because most of the divisions are working in silos. And this is Dr. Hans, global mobility is a missing voice in the transformation system in the digital economy. Because even if you ask with the embassies, they won't know most of the programs. I can guarantee you in most of the European embassies, they have no clue of the programs and the visas that are being given here in Sri Lanka. And then ex-Sri Lankans don't even know the actual process. Some of them are told that they cannot get citizenship here, right, when you actually can. So these divisions, departments, secretariats, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Department of Immigration is working in different silos. There is no unified guideline for them. There is no process workflow. I just want to say one thing. You're asking people to come back from overseas. But the Department of Immigration's last year's report shows that, I just have the number here, 5,547 ex-Sri Lankan visas were issued last year. None of them can work in Sri Lanka. There is no working rights for them. If they have to work, they are treated as an expatriate. They have to get a ministry recommendation, which that in itself is a dilemma because there's only a handful of ministries and they don't cater for the industry. So we are literally having talent already in Sri Lanka that nobody is using. They can't contribute. Then we have, last year, 4,568 spouses of Sri Lankan citizens that are living here who are foreign spouses. Some of them have lived here for like more than 30 years, but still feel alienated here. They don't have any working rights. If they want to work, they have to get this ministry recommendation, which is literally like 5 ministries. There are doctors, engineers, IT professionals, so much talent, but no one is looking at that talent that is here while we're asking for the others to come back. So that needs fixing.
So Sarah, just to quick intervention, do you mean that we have to pretty much reform our Immigration Act, or is there a reason for those bottlenecks? Is there what's the reasoning behind it? Is it rather than working in silos, is there a legal regulatory barrier? What stops them to pop up those numbers like 5,000, 6,000 that there are people who really cannot contribute?
Yeah, so the regulations are very archaic. They're very, very archaic. So what's been happening over the years is that there are certain gazettes that are brought out or cabinet papers that are brought out, and then it's rushed in through, and there are temporary reforms done. So yes, the entire, okay, for example, I'm going to talk about the resident guest scheme visa that used to be there. It was a 5-year visa. It was called the Arthur C. Clarke visa. And the immigration regulation says you can come in, invest, and you can actually contribute to the economy, but you cannot work. But the central bank regulation says you can deposit the earnings from your professional services into your bank account, right? So the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So there has to be an entity, an expert, one body that is bringing all the ecosystem of global mobility and consular affairs and immigration into one place and give this one process flow and fix the problems. Yes, and yes, of course, it means reform. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. It seems we need sort of a deal, what Dr. Kumaraswamy earlier alluded to between Narasimha Rao and the then other side opposition leader, that we will shout but we will not let you down, provided that you change the immigration law and the act. With that, Kavinda, I would like to move to you, because she mentioned about some of the challenges of the banking sector. It seems that when you're depositing money to your account, some of the central bank regulations, you have been a very senior executive of a global bank, and then you took the challenge of joining one of the state banks. Now, how do you reflect of the expatriate community, the Sri Lankan talent who really want to come back, and the support that can be provided by the banking sector? Do you really reflect somewhat what Sanjiva said and somewhat what Sarrah mentioned? Or so also you are in a way, you are in the bank, but I know you have some level of policy level oversight. So is it a conversation inside the government? Has it been considered? Or how does it work internally?
Okay, so I'll start off with Sanjiva's views. I actually tend to agree with him. And I think that's one of the reasons why all of us are here today in Sri Lanka. I think Sri Lanka offers some great opportunities. And across the world, I do travel and I sit on a couple of boards on the UK and a couple of other markets. And life is not perfect. So I think people have to understand like there are unique opportunities, and Sri Lanka has some success stories where you have seen individuals, really thrive and create really meaningful opportunities. Actually, here in this audience also we have a few tech entrepreneurs, which I'm very happy to see. We have Zulfa here. You're one of the guys I just spoke to you. CFA is taking your company as an example to see how financial CFA could use on valuation of companies. On the regulation side, I tend to agree with her as well, and there will be things that I don't agree, but let me come to that. But I think, let's take a step back. We have to compare Sri Lanka with maybe some comparables for all of us. So we have, I would probably, what came to my mind was like markets like Dubai and Singapore, right? For those type of markets and probably where we are. From a banking point of view, we actually have a very stable, strong, governance-linked banking system. And if you take our payment platforms to our digital savviness of the banking system, I believe we have one of the leading systems in South Asia to create real-time fund transfers, to AML, KYC, CDD. So I think it's very strong, stable, and great governance and regulatory side. On the other hand, the agility to create an opportunity for people to come back, I think that's the elephant in the room. I've had so many foreigners whom I worked during my global banking career who wants to come into Sri Lanka similar to a golden visa in other markets. I was actually happy to see, I think we just relaunched the program and I saw it in the press. So it's not just about Sri Lankans, it's also creating opportunities for others to come. We've been following things like digital nomads and others also trying to see to come into Sri Lanka. Few technical things. One is there are double tax treaties with most of the countries in the world, and in most countries people can work 180 days or so, even living in their jurisdiction, coming and working here. So the message is not just for the Gen Zs and the young generation, but for the people who are in their, let's say, the autumn years or the last 10 years of their career, wherever the market they are in. They could fly into Sri Lanka and they could contribute their knowledge, whether they are doctors, surgeons, engineers, teachers, professors. Because remember, when winter comes, it's really cold out there. So they would love to come here. You can do your work, go for a swim in the sea, go out and have drinks with your friends, create that type of opportunity. So we have to cover a major spectrum, not just one spectrum. And then, a lot of people talk about tax and other stuff. So, and I think Sanjiva covered it very correctly. If you take the markets that he covered, like Australia and UK, the tax structures are much higher. And then also we have challenges from markets like Dubai, which only has a 5% VAT, if I'm not mistaken, as at now. Creating an environment for people to come, it's also the quality of life. And another example that I can share to you is working with multinationals over the last 25 years. They've used Sri Lanka sort of like a mini regional hub. And I'll tell you why. Our access to all the neighboring countries is unparalleled to all. We have direct flights to India, all the major cities, to Pakistan, to Bangladesh, to Maldives. That sort of like creates an opportunity for Sri Lanka what maybe Singapore or Hong Kong is to rest of Asia. So it's not just about Sri Lankans coming back, but Sri Lanka has to market this opportunity for multinationals to create their regional hubs here. And they enjoy the quality of life. They have the best of education, covering from international education, university systems, which could take them to the, the top universities in the world, to the best digital and mobile systems in the country and in the region, whether it's 5G or 4G, to the quality of life, to the safety of walking around in Colombo, and also other activities. So I think people are looking at Sri Lanka. And as it was covered before, you had 3 different presidents keeping the same reforms, sticking to the same plans. And people are interested in coming back. We have to encourage and create a stimulus to it. And maybe we could create like short-term assignments. A lot of multinationals do it where you get to go 3 months, 6 months, go and experience the place. And likewise, we have to send our talent out because, we have some great talent. Sanjiva, you're a guy who's taken Sri Lanka to the world, and you have come back and you have created so much opportunity to market Sri Lanka to the rest of the world while working in Sri Lanka. I think these are the type of opportunities that we have to create and convert. And people have to take this with a bit of patience and focus, because the number one thing that comes out across professional forums, which comes to say budget recommendations and others, is policy inconsistency. Whether it's tax law, whether it's immigration, I think over the last 3 years we have shown some consistency, and if we get that right, we can also tap into the biggest, most required thing for Sri Lanka, which is FDI. I'll just pause for that.
Thank you, Kavinda. Thank you very much. That also leaves me to move to Thilan. On the investment front, you have been the head of the BOI a long time ago, and it's critical that looking at talent mobility in any investment framework, and even the BOI zones, the industrial zones, were looking at addressing those investor needs. But however, from what we hear is that talent movement regulation really haven't evolved, it seems. While there's a case like Sanjiva pitched for people to move back, do you think in the BOI regulation that we missed it out, that to make our people to come back and move their know-how capital? Was it a mistake? While we thought about the industrial zones, but we really forgot about the talent. And also at the same time, now in your capacity, how does it reflect in a regional setup for Sri Lankans to actually move back and work here? What is our competitive pitch for them in this context?
Thank you again for that question, and Leah for the invitation. First, let me tell you that I'm a thrice returnee to Sri Lanka. First, after graduating from Cornell University, despite having few job offers in the US, I came back. Attraction then was cricket. Then came the JVP insurrection. I think that's when I met you first, Sarah. Went to Canada, got PR. Came back because I was given a dilemma, in fact a choice, to become a partner in a startup stockbroking company or remain in Canada. I took the latter, came back. 3.5 years later, sold my shares in the company via an IPO, after an IPO at 300 times my return. So it was not a bad payoff in your early 30s to buy a house in Colombo 7. And the third time around was when Elam War 4 broke out. Lock, stock and barrel with the family and kids, moved to Florida. Interviewed for jobs in New York, had 3 offers. Then comes the crash in 2008. Came back in 2009 with a package of $300,000. Yes, there are international companies here who will pay you that sort of money, and what better place to live in when you earn a salary of that sort. Forget the $1 million you get paid in Singapore. So yes, when you are exposed to living overseas, you automatically have a competitive advantage. I can tell you that some of the entrepreneurial ventures I've been a part of, whether it is in tourism, investment banking, export of sapphire, you can break into these markets without much of a sweat. Competition is certainly not yet evolved to the level that would make you work, sometimes the way you have to work in India or in other parts of the world. Now, to answer your question, my view is that, Dhananath, we have unlearned what we learned in the late 90s and early 2000s when we had a reform-oriented administration. Let me tell you let me give you an example. When I was chairman of the Board of Investment, when Apollo Hospital, which is now Lanka Hospital, was built, there was a shortage of nurses, there was a shortage of doctors. With the approval of the health ministry, we issued unlimited visas for nurses and doctors. Nobody made a hum because there was a shortage. Similarly, when the World Trade Center was built, there was a shortage of tile workers, etc. The BOI's recommendation was adopted at face value by the relevant authorities. There was no questioning. Then came the paranoia in the early 2000s or mid-2000s. Oh yes, so at the moment, Sarah, you know this, there's an unofficial way of getting a resident permit, there's an official way. The unofficial way involves a $250 bribe. I'm not making any bones about it. 24 hours, you will have your resident visa. Right, so, and then I go back to somewhere, again in the 2000s, when a general manager was to be hired to a hotel from overseas. The number 2, who was a Sri Lankan, complained to the then president saying, why isn't this company hiring a Sri Lankan? So the point is that we've gone from an open mindset where we as individuals are willing to compete with international talent that comes into this country. That's what raises the bar. We have gone backwards, both from a private sector perspective and a government perspective. Private sector perspective, let me elaborate. How many corporates recruit globally? When we co-founded Asia Group, Asia Securities, which evolved later into an investment bank, we were the first financial services company where the 2 founder managing directors, including myself, resigned and hired an Englishman as a CEO. We were the first startup tourism company, T-Trails, Resplendent Ceylon, to hire a Swiss gentleman as a CEO because we knew that we want to bring that precision and learn from the best in the industry. So in my view, even the private sector needs to raise the bar in terms of looking at global recruitment of talent, whether it is Sri Lankans or non-nationals. Then we come to the government. My view is that it is just as much as the macro is important, who implements the reforms? It is the institutions. Our institutions are broken down because our ministries are broken down. We have a situation where we have a new government, so we have a new minister, we have a new secretary, we have a new chairman and a board of directors of that relevant institution, and we even have a new director general. So the entire institutional memory is lost. Why? Because some stupid president in the past decided we don't want to have a system of permanent secretaries that we have now in India. In India, it's the institutions that run the country, and that is the secret of their growth. So unless and until we look at adapting or changing our cultural biases, where we as people are open to competition, we look at raising the bar in the public service where we benchmark a secretary's salary at least to 500,000 rupees. A secretary barely makes 250,000 with allowances. I have seen the salary slip of the secretary to the treasury. How are we possibly going to be looking at implementing reform? Because every time we open up, we see them as competition. Take, for example, the profession of architects, lawyers, and accountants. Closed. In the tourism industry, I'm hiring foreign architects. I'd love to invite foreign architectural firms to invest here so that young architects can be trained, like in Singapore, like in China, on international best practice. No, the association has barred. So yes, we have to hire an international architect if you are building a top high-class resort, and a local architect just merely puts a signature. But if that architect can set up an office in this country, which is barred by the association, we raise the bar. So unless and until we overcome our fear of competition, fear of competing internationally. I'm sorry, I mean, we are going to be looking at a closed system. So to conclude, Dhananath, we were much more open to attracting foreign talent, whether it was foreign or local, based on their skill. Because the BOI, we had to go through a rigorous process to show there was inadequate skill available in that particular sector, whether it was a tile layer, or whether it was a nurse, or whether it was a specialist doctor. Now what has happened? I'm one of the co-founders of Sri Lanka Institute of Information Technology. We had a license to set up a medical school. We have a shortage of doctors. This government has stopped it. So I won't say more, but I'll just say that unless we look at it with a reformist mindset to open our country to attract talent, which we have not done adequately, unless and until we know, until we understand the principle that you have to pay for talent, you have to pay for strategy. One final point. We talked of taxes. Some years ago, when I was chairman of the PPP agency, I told the then finance minister, Mangala Samaravira, the world's top consulting company, McKinsey, they did 3 weeks of pro bono work and came to the finance ministry and said, we believe that we can stop all the leakages in inland revenue, customs, and excise by doing this work, but pay us this particular fee, which is a relatively larger fee, but we can underwrite 10 times the fee that you pay us. Underwrite. In other words, they won't get paid unless we raise taxes by 10 times what we're paying. In fact, the actual number was about 40 times. I said, Minister, let's do this. Here's how you would negotiate the fees. What happened after that particular meeting? One of the key secretaries of the ministry said, Minister, if you do this, the assessors will go on strike. So my view is that, and when I spoke to the current administration, I was told, oh, can't we find locals to do this? Let us not be fearful to pay for talent until and unless we learn that talent has a price and we pay for that in order to implement reform, we as a country won't progress.
Thank you, Thilan. Thank you very much for those comments, probably coming from the heart with some level of...
This panel, so...
doesn't seems to be. However, with that, I would like to move to Sanjiva, but before moving on, again, please, I think there are a lot of questions coming in, but still, I hope you can scan the QR code and shoot your questions. I think Thilan stopped saying that we should not fearful to pay for the right talent. With that, it opens me the window to move back to Sanjiva. In preparation, Sanjiva, I went back to your Medium post that you have penned in 2016, which you have been pretty much advocated for attracting global talent. You have also been alerted against pretty much suppressing the wages of the local wages by importing low-skilled labor at the same time. Now, this was in 2016. Probably 10 years have passed. Recently, the census has released the new demographic data, and we are having an aging population. Our dependency ratios are going up. I would like to know your logic. Are you still holding to the same view that we have to attract global talent and we have to pay higher wages, including for locals, but we should not allow the market to open for kind of unskilled labor? And I would like to know your rationale.
Sure. I think that's regarding the EDCA agreement that the government was pushing at the time, which was a services, ability to work, services work from India to Sri Lanka. Absolutely, I completely support that we should not, under any condition, open up services for lower cost, purely for lower cost. So in India right now, if you live in India, you can get somebody to clean your house for a fraction of what you pay in Sri Lanka. Right? In Sri Lanka, it's difficult to find somebody to come and clean your house for 50,000 rupees, right? In India, you'll get, if one person not working out, you can fire that person, get 3 more people ready to work, because it's a poorer country at that level. Do we want to say then, well, we're better off if we just bring those people to Sri Lanka? I, as a potential employer, might be better off. The person who's earning 50,000 rupees in Sri Lanka getting that will not be able to earn that anymore. If they want to get that job, they'll have to work for 30,000. Again, I, as a person who can afford to pay the 50 or the 30, I'm slightly better off because I can save 20,000 rupees. That's not the right way to go about it. We should bring highly skilled talent, no problem. But I have one rule in WSO2 we follow, which completely goes against what this commentary, which is that I'm absolutely for anybody to come and work in Sri Lanka, but I will not pay somebody more because they are white-skinned or green-skinned or pink-skinned or black-skinned. A job in Sri Lanka pays the same salary with country, what color, what religion, whatever the hell you are, don't care. You want to do this job, this is the salary. WSO runs on salary scales. We have no favoritism, all formulas. And if you look for a person at a director level in WSO Sri Lanka, we have a price, a comp package. In WSO Singapore, we have a comp package. WSO US has one. Every country is different because salary scales are different in each country. UK is a lot cheaper to hire people than the US. Europe, in Greece, if you hire somebody, it's a lot cheaper than in Spain. Spain and Greece are very low in Europe. Germany is very high. Netherlands is very high. Sweden is very high, right? US is higher. But we will not do that. If you want to move to Sri Lanka and take a job in Sri Lanka, you pay the right level. Now, as a private company, we can maintain that. As government, it's very difficult. Government salaries are very low. I think paying a secretary $500,000 is a joke. Our entry-level salary for in WSO is $1,700 equivalent in Sri Lankan rupees, right? It's about 550,000 rupees. Entry-level. Anybody with a 4-year degree or whatever the thing that we require for any entry-level job, that's our salary. A private sector, reasonably sized company, private sector CEO in Sri Lanka will get 3 to 5 million rupees a month. The president of Sri Lanka earns 400,000 rupees a month, right? The minister of health who runs a company with 400, I think education has 272,000 teachers, some 10,000 principals, so about 350,000 employees in the Ministry of Education. He gets a salary of 500,000 rupees as an MP and a minister, right? So the people who are running these big institutions should be paid properly. I remember a story Lalit Veeratunga told me once. Lalit Veeratunga was previously secretary to the president. I can't remember, he was like prime minister secretary and so forth. Very senior government official. He had joined government in early 70s. Before that, he was working for Bowers, which is a Sri Lankan chemical kind of company, right? Yeah. He was a junior executive, whatever. He passed SLA's exams and joined the government. His salary went up when he joined the government. Today, a junior executive working in any private company joins the government, salary will go down by a factor of 3, 4, 5, or 10 if it's WSO, right? So that is the difference. So we as Sri Lankan citizens, we have a kind of a difficult balancing act to do because we do need to maintain the primary balance. As Indrajit said, we have to keep the cost down. And we have allowed, because of political interference in governance, government has become bloated. Sri Lanka has the most number of elected officials per capita than most countries. Our parliament has 225 people. How many does India have? Lok Sabha? 550, right? We elect in all our, because the previous government, I think the Apalne government, the one that did a lot of good, also did something stupid. In the local government, they increased the local government, doubled the size, right? Remember Colombo Municipal Council had to build another building to have a municipal council meeting because there are 140 municipal councillors. So we need to shrink the government from 1.5 million employees right now, 1.2 without military, 1.2 million down to about 300,000 people. US federal government has 3 million employees. Sri Lanka federal government, Sri Lanka total government is 1.2 million. I don't know the exact federal versus provincial governments, right? So we do need to bring the talent and we need to pay. But we have to pay in a way that maintains the competitiveness and the opportunity for Sri Lankan people to compete. Just saying pay more because somebody is worked outside and wants to come and work here, I don't agree with that approach. I run a global company, I refuse to accept that model.
10 seconds. I fully
Yes.
agree. I fully agree. I was not advocating for white skin or international or whatever. What I was saying was that you have a competitive advantage and take advantage of it, fit into the salary structures. But one more point. There is precedence of government paying high salaries. Me, case and point, where roughly 30 years ago I was offered 100,000 rupees a month to become chairman of the BOI. And in today, I just did a calculation. Today's money, that's 1.7 million a month. And along with me, 20 or 25 others, most of whom were in the financial services, investment banking industry, came into government. And that team was responsible for 45% of FDI, including the reforms in ports, telecommunication, power, etc., where private investment was brought into those sectors for the first time. So there has been a precedence. And while I admire some of those like Hans who do honorary work, but that was supported by a team of youngsters who are paid something close to market rates.
Thank you, Thilan. Thank you very much. There are a lot of questions, Sarah. I think there are quite a few technical questions. There's one question. Are people on a Sri Lankan visa allowed to work or set up a business here? Question number one. And then there's another question from Taraka. The permanent residency visa has been passed in 2024, but not implemented. Can we all lobby for this? India has OCI, so we need to act fast. So is it right that it was? I just wanted to quickly get your comments on those two questions.
Hello. So ex-Sri Lankans technically cannot work at all at the moment, and neither are you allowed, if you ask immigration, to open a business. But if you come on an ETA business visa, which is technically a tourist visa for business reasons, or a tourist visa, you can explore and open a business. So can you see the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing? Permanent residency was approved, and it was really important for the nationalities like Singaporeans and certain countries that don't allow dual citizenship, because those people that want to move to Sri Lanka can't get it. So permanent residency was the pathway that was offered to them. Up to now, there is no, we say, it's all we hear is soon. So it hasn't been implemented.
There's another question. Again, back to you, Sarah. On the micro level, when discussing employment income, what types of exemptions are available for workers? Is there any talk of modernization of these? Is it relevant to you?
Not sure.
Not sure. Okay.
What do you mean by?
I think the question is more on the employment income. Are there any exemptions for
visas?
No, on income. Yes.
There are tax shelter accounts, right? But if I move to the same salary in Sri Lanka, the headline is it's cut off 30% and it's going to the government. So we talk about high taxes, but there are exemptions. So it's not that we have to pay 30-40 tax in a proper tax structure. So is there any talk about modernization of this tax structure? Otherwise, people earning or people considering returning, they're making these comparisons, right?
Thank you.
So I'm not a tax consultant, so I don't
Anyone
know
else
that.
want to take that up?
Yeah, so yes, our tax of talent, notwithstanding what you said, is not competitive sufficiently. Even the UK has lowered their taxes, if I'm not mistaken. I believe 35% is too high to attract talent, and that was one of the reasons why I pushed for minimizing tax leakages. Tax leakages in this country is still extremely significant. And that's one reason why I was advocating for external consultants to plug those loopholes. And at that time, I was arguing with the then finance minister that if you do that, the VAT rate can be brought down by 4 to 5 percentage points. I would love to see a country with a 12% VAT and a 22% income tax. And I believe we can achieve that if we stop the leakages.
Thank you.
BOI when he was there, because that they don't make decisions like that anymore. BOI, yeah.
All right. So again, we have about 3-4 minutes, but I would like to move to Kavinda in the same time. Again, with credit to the government, there has been some consistency being made, and I think the government is purely looking at a more investment drive, and even there has been some announcements being made that on the private sector industrial zones, inviting fellow Sri Lankans to join back. I just want to understand, is there been a chatter internally inside the government or in the banking sector, in the policy circles, on these reforms, mainly on the visa front, especially on attracting the Sri Lankan talent? It seems that there's a lot of opportunity, and people like Sanjiva are willing to pay for the talent, and he has been advocating for it. And I think everyone is looking for, even the businesses, to get the right talent, including in this room. But it still seems that there has been some regulatory challenges at the same time. From what I heard from Sarah and from what I hear from the audience questions. Is there any consideration on the changes? President has spoken about an investment protection sort of legislation. I'm not sure whether it covers the immigration front. Do you have any insight by any chance, Kavinda, on this?
Actually, so I am a professional just like the others, and I am chairman of Bank of Ceylon. My views are independent. I can share some views as a professional. I think what we see, especially from a professional point of view, is that if you take the environment, if you take Dr. Hans, if you take me, we resigned multinationals to come and support Sri Lanka to develop and take Sri Lanka to a new paradigm. We want to stand up for what's right, and I echo with Sanjiva, diversity, equity and inclusion, the right person for the right job. I echo with Thilan, we have to pay the right price for that person. And I really like the digitization drive, because with digitization, we can stop corruption. Simple things like bringing GovPay and giving, paying your traffic fine online right there are examples of some great things happening. You paying your rent and rates, walking, taking taxi, going physically versus logging online on your phone and paying taxes, little things that can make substantial changes. The unique ID that's going to come, the connection of all these things to one system. Let's compare where Dubai and Singapore is. I mean, in Dubai, I believe if you are registered properly, you don't even need your passport. Your biometrics open the pass for you to go in. That's where technology has enabled people. So I think this is a journey. And in that journey, while the end state is like, to some of the markets that we benchmarked, this transition will need some more work to be done. And I see some bold moves. I can share my experience at Bank of Ceylon. My board today has more independent directors than those appointed. Just think about it. The largest bank in Sri Lanka, commanding over 1/5 of the total banking share. The decisions are done by quality professionals. You can look them up on the board. And governance have kicked in. Dr. Kumaraswamy touched it. Central Bank, IMF, Ministry of Finance, all these stakeholders have worked together to conclude the state-owned banks reform. Today, even the state banks have a set of really good professionals who are taking decisions at the apex level, which if you account and total all of this, is a substantial part, if you add up the 2-3 large state banks. So I think professionals are coming in, we are creating opportunities, and I'm not sure if I answered your question, but you have to keep in mind I'm not in the government.
I understand. Thank you, Kavinda.
Yeah.
Yes, I think final thoughts for Sanjiva and Thilan. Yes, go ahead, Sanjiva.
I just want to add to the visa question. So if you are a professional taking a job in a company in Sri Lanka, there is a process to get a visa. There is no problem. If you're a BOI company, it's extremely straightforward. If you're not a BOI company, it's a little bit more process. And it can be done. There is no problem doing it. I've run a company for 20 years, and I've run 3 foundations for longer. We have never paid any bribe to anybody to do anything. Never. So there is a way to do it if you have a job and you come to Sri Lanka. If you come here as a tourist and you want to get a job, or you come here as an investor, Sri Lankan person coming here, yes, then there are more challenges and we need to improve those. But if you are coming to take up a job that somebody has given you an offer letter, there is a process. Just like in any other country. If I go to UK, I can't just go in there and go find a job, right? Doesn't work like that. And we do need to improve some of the services and the way we treat people who are of Sri Lankan origin. And OCI is a great model India has. We don't have that. We need to establish some changes.
Sanjiva, just to understand, your company comes under the BOI category?
Yeah, WC2 is under BOI, but there's another foundation I run, 3 foundations I run, which are not the regular Act 16 companies. And if we want to get somebody, there is a process, and it's perfectly straightforward. It takes time. It's usual, normal government protocol, but can be done.
30 seconds.
I'll go to Thilan and then come back to Sarrah very quickly.
30 seconds. One of the greatest things that I find, having gone out, come back to this country time and time again, apart from its natural beauty, its tourism potential, today I can honestly say that I have not seen this level of integrity in any government of the past. I can talk for 2 hours on the horror stories I've seen of wastage, corruption in the past of white elephants being built. So that's a great positive, because I'm still involved in several entrepreneurial aspects, including in setting up some new tourism ventures. the key issue is that alongside that we have to strengthen competence. Because corruption and incompetence is the worst, but lack of corruption with enhanced competence is what's going to take us to the next level. And to have that competence, I always say this, we need to start with what I call pockets of excellence. WSO2 is one of them. And if any one of you can come back to this country and start enough pockets of excellence at some point which seems like within a sea of what I call mediocrity, enough of those pockets of excellence means, regardless of whatever bureaucratic hurdles you have to face, then we are elevating ourselves as a country. So that's one reason why I encourage more pockets of excellence to be set up in this country so that then we start propagating more and more and we elevate ourselves. And the government will become followers rather than leaders.
Thank you very much.
Can I just take
Can I get
5 seconds? 5 seconds.
Sarah and come back to you, Kavinda.
Yes, so just to second what Sanjiv said, ICTA, which is the technology that gives the ministry recommendations for international talent to come into Sri Lanka, is one of the best ministries. Very, just a process, and within 3 to 4 weeks, you can get a visa for international talent. BOI, a little cumbersome, and then the only other ministry that we handle multinational visas incoming is the Department of Commerce. But there is place for improvement to include other industries. I just wanted to add.
Yes, final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts. I think for those out there, this is the time to come in. In simple economics or markets, you need to come in early. The first mover advantage is there, and believe me, with that, you create a network, you create all professionals getting together, and you also establish yourself early to ride the curve. It's like in any investment opportunity. Once the market has moved, your growth will be not a very substantial growth. But at an early stage, you can ride the hockey stick. The hockey stick curve is where, if you look at it from an optimistic point of view. So now is the time, and also consider, as Sri Lankans, family, friends, culture, work environment, those are also other things that come along. And it's a great time to step up. You need to walk your talk. If you want to support Sri Lanka, come in now.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think the message is quite clear. I want to make it a very realistic panel discussion. I think the message is there's a lot of opportunity, and I think Sanjiva brought the point that on the BOI process, there's a lot of option. He hasn't paid a single cent to get the visa, so it's open. At the same time, we have regulatory barriers that we need to change, which let's be open about it, and get the reform going. And if you want to take part, this is the time. Be the early movers, early shakers. And it's a great country. While there's all craziness going on, still it's a great place to work. And I would like to wrap up the conversation with a quote. The problem isn't a lack of talent. It's that the talent has options, and we have to be a better option for them to attract. With that, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to Sanjiva, Thilan, Kavinda, and Sarah. Thank you very much.